Good morning and welcome to the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator's launch of its Climate Smart Map. We are here in Dubai at the Expo City 2020 for the COP28 held in 2023. Joining me on stage this morning is our Director of Public Sector Projects, Ms. Kiesha Farnum, and I am Cheryl Senhouse, Finance Innovation Director with the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator. This morning, we launched our Climate Smart Map. It's a pioneering initiative by our organization that is aimed at accelerating climate smart solutions in the Caribbean region. Given the increasing intensity of severe climate-related impacts on our vulnerable region, innovative and sustainable practices have become a critical necessity. This event introduces the Climate Smart Map initiative, which is a data-driven resource designed to inform decision-making and to build resilience to climate change in the Caribbean. So how did we as an organization get here? Our work is focused on four core pillars: building renewable energy and energy resilience in the Caribbean by the achievement of 90% renewable energy by 2030. We are also focused on building physical and economic resilience for the region, along with enabling nature-based solutions. And our fourth pillar is our Climate Smart Map, to fulfill the objective of creating a climate smart zone within the Caribbean. So our first step was defining what a climate smart zone is. We worked with key collaborators, PwC namely, with a view to identifying the key components of a climate smart zone, along with cross-cutting themes that support its achievement. We also identified critical sectors that must be addressed for the achievement of a climate smart zone in the region. In addition, we focused on identifying measures for each component or characteristics that will comprise the climate smart zone. We then put our minds to how do we represent the progress of the Caribbean in a way that's easy to aggregate and while maintaining data integrity, in a way that's easily accessible, easy to manipulate, and easy to isolate points of interest for the user. To assist us with this, we engage with Visuality as a partner to help us design the tool that our users will use to manage and manipulate data. Today, we launched the map as a web-based tool which will help address the significant issue of data scarcity for the region. This issue has hindered collaboration and access to critical finance in the region. We provide now a data-driven platform which will assist decision makers with valuable insights, which will facilitate informed investments in climate-smart initiatives, and will also serve as a catalyst for aligning resources with effective solutions. The Climate Smart Map will assist with attracting philanthropic support, nurturing scalable projects, and empowering entrepreneurs to create innovative solutions for the region, as well as advancing climate resilience. For our discussion this morning, we'll speak a bit about how the Climate Smart Map can enable policymakers, support collaboration, showcase pioneering projects and solutions from across the region, and ultimately foster collaboration and the exchange of knowledge for our partners. Kiesha, I'm going to bring you into the discussion at this stage. Your remit with our organization is focused on our project pipeline, developing and delivering projects that assist with the achievement of climate resilience in the region. As an internal user and as an internal user who supports our pipeline of external project developers, how does the Climate Smart Map assist you with your remit?
Thanks, Cheryl. So how I would like to look at this is both from the external view and the internal view. So let's start with the internal view first. You would have mentioned that we have 4 pillars, but these 4 pillars are supported by three types of activities, right? So we have lighthouse projects and pipeline projects. We do a lot of relationship building and management, and we also work heavily in the area of advocacy. In terms of the lighthouse projects and the pipeline projects, I think it's really important to understand how we work in this area. So with the lighthouse projects, those are the projects that we facilitate. We internally use the term, it's a heavy lift versus a light touch, right? And those are the projects that we look at how we scope them. We do, we're part of the design. We look at the feasibility studies, and with those projects, being able to have the type of data that the Climate Smart Map curates is really important, because for those projects are regional projects, and being able to get data that shows us how we can create economies of scale with those projects across multiple countries is really important for us. A good example of one of those projects is a project that we're doing with an organization called CRDC Global, and that is for a product called Resonate, which takes plastic and puts it into, and turns it into a resin that can be added to concrete to strengthen concrete, but also in terms of carbon sequestration and also the resilience of the concrete of itself, it makes it stronger. Right? What's really interesting about this particular piece of technology is that you can use any type of plastic. It's not just PET. You could use what you call dirty plastic or all 8 types of resin. So, when people do beach cleanups and that kind of stuff, the kind of resin that you get from there is really dirty stuff. You just put it in the machine, the extruder, and it turns it into this resin that you can use. Now, in order for that to be commercially viable, within our small Caribbean countries, we need to be able to do that at scale. So the closest plant to us is in Costa Rica. And right now we're in discussions with several Caribbean countries, Jamaica and Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, at looking at how we can scale this project across a number of countries. And so understanding what, the Climate Smart Map definitely comes in handy in terms of understanding what's the lay of the land of the circular economy within each of these countries, and then how we can design a project that allows us to create economies of scale that make something like this commercially viable.
So, Kiesha, from the finance perspective, it's good to hear you speak about scale at the project level, because we are aware that one of the challenges that we face in the Caribbean region is the size of projects. And that impacts the ability to access financing because of transaction costs in a lot of instances, and the ability of funders generally to get to a ticket size or level that makes it make sense for them to invest in the region.
Yeah.
So certainly from the finance perspective, the issue of scale and replicability of projects across the region is important in terms of mobilizing capital.
Yeah.
So I certainly would want to see users leverage the information that's available on the map to help them, particularly from the finance perspective, understand where there are opportunities to fund similar type projects or to aggregate projects. You speak about scaling from their perspective, it would be about aggregating to make the investment decisions make sense for them.
Yeah.
And certainly that redounds to the benefit of the projects as well.
Exactly.
Lower transaction costs hopefully can result in maybe lower interest costs,
Yeah.
lower fees, and so on for closing deals, so that it also helps them to better access funding for projects.
I mean, when you think about external stakeholders and you think about donors who want to engage in the region, we've had so many donors approach us to say, okay, what are the needs of the region? Because many donors want to make sure that they're not replicating effort. But they all have the same complaint. They don't know where to find information that curates everything that's happening within the region. And so even from the point of project design and designing projects that are filling gaps rather than replicating efforts, it becomes really important, because as a donor, whether you're philanthropic or you're a multilateral development bank, you want to be able to fill a space in which you're actually making a difference, and not find out, 2 years into project preparation that there's another project being done by another donor that's very similar. And what the map allows you to do is, you can then see what's happening and then build on that. So then what we have is cumulative development that's happening in projects, so that you can actually see sustainable development happening, but you also have the best use of the very scarce resources that are allocated towards the region, right? One of the things too as well, in terms of individual project owners, we've vetted over 300 projects over our 28 member countries in the lifespan of our organization. And there are a couple of things that have come up as reoccurring themes. One, very interestingly, is there's a question on our portal, our submission portal, that says, do you know if anybody else is doing what you're doing, right? And how is your project unique from other projects? And there is an option to say, I don't know. And it is remarkable to me how many people say, I don't know. And my first thought is, well, Google it. But even Google doesn't know sometimes, right? Particularly for some of the smaller islands. So like for our Dutch overseas territories, for the French overseas territories, the amount of data that's available for those countries is very little. So having something like the map as a project stakeholder, you're actually able to look and see who else is doing something in sargassum, who else is doing something with hydroponic farming, who else is doing something with sustainable beekeeping, those niche markets that are not necessarily out there. We're now able to have a space in which project stakeholders can go in and say, oh, this person is doing that. And what that does too as well is that it could create a community of practice, right? So if there's a space where people doing similar things can share what's happening, share the challenges that they've had, but also if we could then take all of these projects. So for example, our last call for projects in August, in Jamaica alone, we had 5 hydroponic projects, individual project owners come to the fore. And if we were able to say, okay, you're all doing this, there's enough room for all of you to execute each of your projects because you impact different communities, but could we make it under an umbrella project, where now it's more attractive, for financing. It really helps us to create that economies of scale that you were referencing.
Yes, and I think it actually provides an excellent opportunity as well for the development of, as you said, communities of practice, but centers of excellence.
Yes.
And what we hope to be able to support across the region is where we can have economic hubs where particular countries or specific ministries within each country are focused on supporting a particular type of innovation towards climate action.
Yes.
So we spoke about replication, we spoke about scaling. We don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel to do that.
Yeah.
We can ensure that we enable persons who are doing similar type work to come together to build on the knowledge that they've each acquired in their respective markets by taking on their initiative to accelerate the pace of development and to build on the technical skill and the outputs from their projects to the benefit of the region.
Yeah. I think one of the things too as well that is really going to help inform and bring greater information to this map is the development of our innovation fund.
Sure.
So we are developing a fund that we are going to be rolling out next year. And that fund is looking at filling the gaps that I mentioned earlier that we've identified through the project assessment work that we've been doing. So we realize that there is a need for project preparation. Project preparation for investment. So the region has been characterized by grant funding for many years, but grant funding is dwindling, and the type of funding that's available now is investment funding. So you're talking about debt, equity, venture capital, that's a completely different type of project preparation that's required. The projects need to be designed in a completely different way. When you're talking about commercializing projects, it's a completely different, as we say in the Caribbean, kettle of fish. Right? So if it is that we're looking at how we can fill that gap of project preparation and what facilities we can bring on board, whether it's from other partners or from that fund itself, to be able to catalyze projects. But we're also looking at what our CEO, Raquel Moses, coined as shovel-worthy projects. to get them to the stage of shovel readiness. So there are projects where they have proof of concept. And I think that this is also incredibly important because the Climate Smart Map is also going to be a showcase of what we're doing right in the region. Yes, we have a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of opportunities. And there are a lot of really bright scientists, young people too as well, who have innovative ways of dealing with our problems. We are the architects of our own survival, right? And the Climate Smart Map is going to allow us to feature that indigenous projects that are of, from, and for the region, that we will be able to move to the next stage to get them to the stage where they can access investment outside of the region. So it really is this space that is wrapped around the work that we do, but also it's going to be a space where, you know, this kind of multi-stakeholder engagement really pans out. You know, if you're a university, you can use it. If you're an individual stakeholder, you can use it. If you're a government stakeholder, you can use it. Yeah, so it has that type of information on it.
So let's talk about a bit about the data integrity.
Yeah.
How we gather information to populate the map, the type of information that we're looking at to inform what a climate smart zone will look like.
Yeah.
From your perspective, developing our project pipeline, what type of information are you looking at?
So I think I'll take a step back and just kind of mention the process that we went through to collect the information that we already have, right? So with PwC, you know, we used our vast network to reach out to all the government stakeholders and key regional stakeholders with a very robust questionnaire. And the response, I must say, I must use this opportunity to say thank you very much to all of our stakeholders for actually responding to questionnaires. If you're like me and you see a questionnaire, if I can absolutely get away with not answering it, I would. So, you know, having the stakeholders actually respond to us, but I think it's because they understood the value of what we were trying to do too as well, and we were able to communicate that. And so getting the data directly from the source, I think, was really important. So the data that is populating this beta version of the map that's being launched came directly from the source. And as we go along, we're going to make sure that that data is updated, because I think that's a major flaw of many data centers. You know, it's like you start off, you get all the information, and then it very quickly becomes obsolete because time has passed, right? So making sure that it's updated. In terms of the types of data, so from a project point of view, we're going to be able to feature projects at a high level because, you know, we don't want to give away people's proprietary information. And part of the process is getting permission from the project stakeholders to be able to share that information. Project value, you know, what area, what's the unique, innovative aspect of the project. Of course, it is going to be against our 4 pillars, which are pretty broad, right? And so allows for a wide range of climate smart work. But also, there's going to be that aspect of this is the funding opportunities that's available in the region, and we do a lot of that right now. You know, so persons usually send, or organizations send their opportunities to us, and we share it on our networks, either directly with project stakeholders or on our various medias. Now, there's this space where people can log in, get that information, and that's constantly being updated in terms of opportunities. And I think that that's going to be really important as well. And then there's going to be an aspect of it that is that community of practice that I mentioned before, where you're able to join groups, you know, where you're able to communicate, share experiences with people who are doing similar things to what you're doing. And I think those 3 elements are incredibly important. And I'll let you speak to the financial side of it a little bit more. But for me, from the project point of view, that's critical.
So I think from the financial side, investors looking into the region for opportunities to invest have the opportunity to see what types of projects are being developed, the scale of the projects, the type of investment that they're looking for, and certainly, as I mentioned initially, to assess if there are opportunities to aggregate projects. You will tend to find investors who may be focused on specific sectors and may want to support both development of that sector through investment, but the introduction of new technologies as well, and the introduction of new types of financing into the region. So it will also provide them with the opportunity to get the lay of the land. Um, Quite often, as we collaborate, both regionally and internationally, we will get the question from persons who may not have operated in the region before about what is happening in the region, what is the best country to do to undertake this particular initiative. Where have countries generally gotten with, for instance, the uptake of renewable energy? We get the question a lot about solar versus wind and the new renewable energy technologies. So I think there is the opportunity to really understand progress across the region, the opportunities as well, not just for investors, but for new suppliers to enter the regional markets with technologies that, if we determine they're suitable for our needs, that we can engage in partnerships to support the development of our ambitions towards climate action.
Yeah.
So that's how it would work from my perspective. But I'd want to hear from you as well. When we get that question about the country specifically, the achievement of nationally determined contributions, where's a particular country on the trajectory of, achieving conservation or
Yeah.
renewable energy uptake? How will the map help them to understand? How do you go about gathering that information now, not from private sector players, but from countries about what they have been able to achieve?
Yeah. So as it stands right now, we have country profiles for each of our 28 member countries. And those country profiles map countries against our four focus areas. So what's the most recent development with links to where we found that information. And the most that's been fairly recently updated in June of this year. So we try to keep that updated, and it's part of our mandate as an organization to make sure that we understand what the governments need. Because as you mentioned, we constantly have what we refer to as suppliers approaching us with, looking for implementation partners, looking to fund projects, or with a piece of technology and a financing package available in order to be able to access that piece of technology. And so being able to have our pulse on what's happening in that country, and that project profile also has, whether their NDC has been updated, what were the commitments that they made, their targets under the different areas. So for example, renewable energy, what are their targets? Where are their targets now? And for some countries that have done their IRRPs, it really is an opportunity to see exactly where you are, where the gaps are, and then see what types of renewable technology would be needed based on the mix that you've come up with, the ideal renewable energy mix for your country, to be able to help you chart that course to where you need to be in order to fulfill your targets. I think a really good example that we recently launched of, having a piece of technology and finding the right partners is our Climate Smart Agriculture project. So with the Climate Smart Agriculture, we've partnered with an organization called Fork Farms, and they are a hydroponic growing unit company, right? But I think what's really interesting about their product is that it's very small, it's modular, it just takes up about 10 square feet, and it's incredibly easy to manage and maintain. So you have students in schools being able to put together the unit, but then the unit is made in such a way that you can go to any hardware in the Caribbean and get replacement parts if you need it. You don't have to go outside to import stuff, but you also don't have to import the know-how, the technical know-how, how to use the equipment as well. And so we've started the pilot in Cayman, Anguilla, and Barbados, and that was based on a need that had been identified by those islands for this type of technology. They have very small populations. They wanted to be able to introduce it into their school programs, into, their overall system with the idea of scaling it. And I mean, Cayman has already committed, since we started the pilot, to scale to 20 additional units all of which have already been shipped. So it's really just because we understood what the need of that partner was, we saw an opportunity that fit that need, and we were able to fill it. And so being able to have this type of sequence of events happening with the Climate Smart Map on a greater scale will really help us to I think, grow exponentially the type of work that we do in the region. Here, I would like to make a plug for CDB's work that they're doing with a minimum regulatory framework, because something like that, being able to feature something like that on our map, if you are a renewable energy person, then, you understand that each country has this minimum regulatory framework, and it then makes it easier for you to be able to collate projects or, create economies of scale in terms of projects across countries.
Thank you. So if you were to sum up them, Kiesha, from the perspective of both the internal and external parties with whom you collaborate, what are the key advantages of the Climate Smart Map, and how can we go about leveraging that information on a day-to-day basis to achieve our overall climate ambitions?
All right, so for me, it would be access to funding, and access for funding that's fit for purpose, right? So it's the opportunities, whether it's for project preparation, whether it's for scaling a project that has already started, whether it's for, something that's in an early startup stage, it's fit for purpose funding and access to that, or at least a roadmap as to where you can get that. For the other side, for the funders, it's how can I best spend the money that I have and I want to contribute towards the region, and do it in a way that I am having the most amount of impact, right? Which is where most donors are driven. They want to know, what impact am I having? And so knowing that I'm filling gaps, I'm not replicating what's already being done, and I'm actually making a difference. I think that's also important. I think for, on having just access to information all in one place, having access to data, having access to, what other projects are doing and what's in that space is also critical for project development, whether you're an individual project owner or you're a donor looking at creating a program. So that's also important. And then finally, I think it's as you say, like this, it's a center of excellence for us for the region. Again, there's so many amazing projects that are happening. In Jamaica, we have a young man who's, creating a biofuel, right? D360. We have young, innovative Caribbean people doing amazing things, and I want the world to know about it. I want the world to know that we are, as I used the term before, but the architects of our own survival. And I think that the Climate Smart Map will be a great space to be able to showcase that as well.
Thank you. So I'll close out our session by reminding that we have worked with established and creditable partners, PricewaterhouseCoopers and Visuality, for the development of our map, which will be available on our website to users to be able to interrogate and interact with the information that we've gathered. Our objective as an organization is to support the region in the achievement of a climate smart zone, and we've taken these steps to ensure that we have taken a very robust view of what a climate smart zone will look like for the region. What are the key components of a climate smart zone? What are the themes that support that? What are the key sectors that need to be accelerated to ensure that we achieve our climate ambitions for the region? And key themes for us as an organization are technology and knowledge sharing. And the Climate Smart Map assists us in achieving that goal as well. While we are supporting the region in becoming a climate smart zone, we want to ensure that the region and those who support us, both funders as well as suppliers, everyone who shares a vision for a safe future, is able to access information that allows us to achieve our ambitions. Thank you for supporting us in this initiative. Thank you for joining us this morning. And please look out for our Smart Map, which will be available on our website to help us leverage technology and leverage information for the achievement of our climate ambitions in the Caribbean. Thank you for joining us. I'm Cheryl Senhouse, Finance Innovation Director with the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, joined by Kiesha Farnum, our Director of Public Sector Projects with the organization. Thank you so much.